Welcome to Constructive Conversations, Building Canada's Story. I'm your host, George Affleck. Thanks for joining me as we dig into the foundations of Canada's construction industry, learning from leaders and pioneers in the business. Today, I'm joined by Sean Hodgins, the president of Century Group, a real estate development and management company based in New Westminster, British Columbia. His passion is creating communities, both in his workplace and the community as a whole. Let's start the conversation now. First of all, Sean, I want to thank you for joining me today and have this constructive conversation. We want to know more about what you do and how you're helping shape the industry in BC. Let's start by finding out more about Century Group and what you do and why.
Okay, well, thank you, George, and thank you for inviting me to this series. And Century Group is a mid-sized property developer and builder. And we are based in New Westminster. We've been in business since 1957 and owned by my family. And we, generally work in both market housing. We also own a stable of our own income producing property that we continue to manage. And we also do our own construction.
Obviously, development is it's always a hot topic, and but from the developer side of things, what are the biggest issues you're dealing with on a regular basis?
Well, I would say it's changed very much even in the last 12 months. I would say we are, given that it's been a very actually robust housing market, what we are now finding probably the biggest issue currently is the entitlement process again. I think we went through quite a honeymoon period of sorts where local government was trying to be very responsive at the beginning of the pandemic, and they were giving actually a lot of latitude, and I really congratulate them for that. To the extent, building inspectors were saying, "Look, our protocol doesn't allow us to come on site, but take a photo and email it to us and of an inspection, and we should be able to give you your permit." Those days seem to have waned, and we're back to some of the officious uh, protocols or practices in place, and permits are again hard to acquire.
That's very frustrating because government can be helpful, but it can also, as you say, create roadblocks. Why do you think they wouldn't use those lessons learned at that stage and utilize some of those techniques to move forward? It seems logical.
It would seem logical. I think many of us were working in sort of an emergency mode, and there was a time period where they were willing to forgive some process for the sake of expediency, and I feel perhaps that's in the long run, sort of expediency that isn't caught up with sort of the due process, just can't survive. So I think it needs a realignment to say, what were some of the lessons we learned? We could safely conduct business. We didn't need to bury the building community in paperwork as much. What could we learn out of that? I don't have the answer to that at this point, but I would certainly encourage local governments to look at what went quite well actually during those months.
It's frustrating. I think that certainly in Vancouver, there's been some push towards creating more efficiencies. I think there were some recent motions related to this. Is there a way to maybe divide up the way permits are processed, big ones, small ones? Is there something that could be done that way for government?
I would like to think so. I think there is a real unified stream of, and not to sound precious, but the upstart development and one-time home builder gets put in the same queue as an experienced a certified developer such as ourselves, and it seems that the roadblocks to be able to put 100 units on of rental housing or market housing could be impeded by even small applications that were put on the counter just ahead of us. So I would like to think there would be a better way to deal with this process. If housing is the issue in Metro Vancouver, then I think it can be dealt with in the process.
I mean, I think it's an issue when I've spoken to people across the country for this series, and it's an issue in every corner of the country. From your point of view on the supply side and this whole, you know, slightly sensitive concept of supply, but when you talk about the kinds of product or building out as much units, is there a way that from your side that you can be more efficient with prefabrication or something that can create a way to get things done quicker?
Well, yeah, leaving aside the government process, certainly the industry, I feel very strongly is moving towards prefabrication of building products, of panelized wall systems and other types of systems. I think in terms of uh, quality control. Most construction sites are subject to the vagary. All construction sites are subject to the vagaries of wind and weather, and oftentimes that really impedes quality control. So the faster you can get that site uh, done by doing a lot of the work off-site in a controlled environment, uh, as I said, prefabricated building products, that absolutely has got to be where this industry goes.
You do your job, government does their job, dream scenario, but there's still the public and their involvement in that process. There is an engaged public is great, but sometimes within the approval process that can slow things down. Is there a way to improve that relationship between developers and the government and then the public and how those three work together?
I absolutely think there's a huge room for improvement. I think the public needs to be more engaged in the important planning issues that are shaping or ought to shape Metro Vancouver. I think local government needs to lead an intelligent discussion. The discussion should not just happen in response to a specific development application that is down the street from a concerned neighbor. That discussion and that application needs to be discussed and thought of in the context of where is the city, the region, the neighborhood going, and what are some of the attributes that we want to improve. If we want good transit in a neighborhood, that means probably building a lot of reasonably dense housing near those transit stops. That's what's going to drive better transit service because there are a lot of people demanding transit service. So, as one example of some of the attributes, so people saying, I would love to see better transit service in my neighborhood, but not, but at the same time opposing some forms of denser developments and really not seeing the relationship between those things. Those are discussions that need to be driven by the local government so that we can have an intelligent discussion, not a shouting match at public hearings.
You've kind of, do you feel that with your company, niching might be a way to do that? So once you become super efficient at one category or a style or a geography, is niching potentially a way to deal with that? So then you become really efficient. Government knows who you are, can expect, the process to go quickly from your side and their side. Is that helpful? And do you do that niche kind of development?
No, I would say that, our types of projects are really so varied. I wouldn't say that niching is going to work for a company like ourselves. We enjoy the variety and the disparity, if you will, of different projects that we do, from high rise to sometimes to single family housing. It's really the whole gambit that we do. But we do take pride in our public engagement, uh, and I think that any company or any real estate property developer that wants to thrive in an approval process really has to have a sincere, intelligent capacity to engage with a neighborhood.
One of the key planks and pillars for your business is really that neighborliness, or it's not you're working holistically, developing not just a building. This is about a neighborhood and how things fit in. And we hear a lot about sprawl. We hear, in a general sense, you touched on it related to the right kind of development in transit hubs. From your point of view, is that neighborliness, how does that work, and how do you fit that in? If you're just working on one project, that's one thing. But if you're thinking about the whole neighborhood, how do you connect all those dots?
Well, we've done public engagement processes that have really started with having a conversation. First of all, do your homework. What are the in planning terms, you might say the assets that are in a community or in a neighborhood. Where are the churches? Where are the schools? Where is the shopping? The libraries? The things that actually are really the most important buildings in a community. Let's face it. Those are the starting points, and certain things, for instance, like the quality of the retail space, or the variety of housing that might take advantage of that. There are certainly instances where schools, we know that downtown Vancouver there are simply not enough schools. There's been so much development that there aren't enough schools for the school age children. Other parts of Metro Vancouver, as the demographics have changed, some schools are running at half capacity and maybe at danger of closing. So if we can have a discussion around, okay, well, is there a type of housing that will take advantage of that school, will see school families with school age children take root in that neighborhood and maintain the quality of that neighborhood that oftentimes is really exemplified by the existence of a school. And does the community actually understand that that school may be at threat of closing?
It's one of those ironies when there's all this excitement about a new development in a neighborhood that doesn't have a school, and almost always the challenge is getting that school in there after the development's finished. It's almost backwards. If the school exists, why not start developing in and around that school that already exists, so you don't have to worry about that? Certainly, as a parent, I live downtown, and that was one of the challenges with my kids. We didn't have a school until they were well into elementary school, and there's that certain irony. When you think about the projects you've done and thinking about that holistic approach to development, and just thinking about the neighborhood and neighborhoodness, and connecting all those dots together, can you think of some projects that really that you've done that meet that criteria that you're really proud of?
Yeah, certainly. The project that we finished in 2018, just a few years ago, 3 Civic Plaza. We worked with which is the largest project we've built to date, right at the central SkyTrain station in Surrey. We worked very closely with Surrey City Development Corporation, which was wholly owned by the city. They were a partner in the project, and the project really was about trying to meet the ambition of a more sophisticated downtown Surrey, uh, Surrey City Centre, what used to be referred to as Wally, and is now quickly becoming a very urban center. What the city did not want was just another condo development. They wanted something that exemplified the needs of the wider community, and particularly the growing business community. So we developed what became known as 3 Civic Plaza. It had 340 some odd market condominiums. It also has the Civic Hotel, which we continue to own and operate. It's a Marriott Autograph Collection hotel, right on the Civic Plaza, right across from City Hall. when we were still, having lunches together, it was really part of animating that civic plaza. And we also built some office that became the Portland Polytechnic University, the downtown Surrey campus. So in a really, from one end of the spectrum of not only was it the largest project we built, but I would say that in terms of really working with the city of Surrey to create the most their expression of what they wanted to exemplify the Surrey City Centre, I think has been a great success, and we're certainly very proud of that as a company.
It's the transformed for sure. And I grew up out in the valley and used to work in that area at the Pizza Hut, and so certainly I'm familiar with the neighborhood. And it is transformational. I think focusing on that approach, a holistic approach, and thinking about business, office, retail, strata, rental, government, and then activities as well. These are key, I think, ways to develop a community that people then can live and work and do everything they want in that neighborhood without ever having to leave, really. And that's important.
Yeah, and if I could say, I think the interesting thing about where so much of the industry that drives this region is really happening south of the Fraser. The shift of power, if you will, is moving south of the Fraser. And when we built that hotel, it was a very business and industry focused hotel because there really wasn't a project that actually met that need in that area. We've got world leading industries sort of hidden away in industrial parks where they're bringing in world-class engineers and consultants to help them solve their business problems, but we didn't have a world-class hotel, and now we do. So for all sorts of reasons, there was a lot of things that Surrey was very astute in working with us on helping us shape the vision of that project as part of the vision of Surrey overall.
Government working with business. What a concept. When you inspirational. Speaking of inspirational, one of the things I've heard a lot with my interviews is finding great talent is tough. Not only in there's the engineering side, but just the work teams that you have. What are the challenges you're facing with that, and how do you overcome them? And just any tips to the industry in general on how to improve that.
Well, I think the thing that comes to mind instantly is that development and construction are very male dominated industries, and it's changed. We are much better, but we have to be betterer. We have to really embrace make a welcoming and inclusive environment. Should not be. This is less and less an alpha male industry. We need, when we design and sell market housing, I can tell you that no project will sell if the feminine side of a household does not see the features that they want to see. And so, embracing, understanding, or rather failing to understand or failing to have women as part of your team to help you shape what does it mean for a woman, and not to sound patronizing, but it's just a simple state of affairs. What does it mean that a woman feels safe in an underground parkade? Because or any number of circumstances that are critical to the design of these projects that we're building. And if we're not taking those factors into account, we will not succeed as a company. So I think the more voices that we hear from women, from the more the talent pool that is out there that may feel intimidated by again, I've said the white male dominated industry. I think it will continue to be difficult to attract the talent we want. It's an exciting industry, I love it, but we need more a diverse talent pool attracted to work with us.
That's a call to action, Sean, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you connecting with me today and have this conversation. And I think it's an important one, and dealing with how we build our communities, who does build those communities, the people involved, and the people you work with is really important. And I appreciate our chat today. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you very much, George.
I'm George Affleck. Thanks for joining me at Constructive Conversations, Building Canada Stories, where we dig into the foundations of Canada's construction industry, learning from leaders and pioneers in the business.